Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Oh man, good evening, everybody. It's unveiling time. That's what it is. Sorry, we're a tad bit not behind, but knowing that a great unveiling has just taken place. Good evening. I'm Ed McQueen, your host, and of course, right beside me is Miss April Garner. She's the co-host, and we want to welcome you to our program with so much to share with you today. That on an issue and a hero that we keep. Some of you may be saying that may say that you can't. We've talked about it a lot. You can never talk about this too much. So, and that subject is our hero, one of our heroes, Miss Harriet Tubman. Maybe a year or two ago, the movie came out with Harriet Tubman. That kind of brought out a lot of stuff that a lot of people just don't know about. Okay, and this hero needs to be told about. But anyway, it was just give you a little background on this. A sculpture that was done and started out, I believe, in Auburn, New York. The first unveiling, and the interest has been sparked, and so it became a mobile thing to make sure that everybody got a good glimpse of what we're dealing with, and some of our I'm going to use the word heroes again and sheroes that some of us just don't know about. Okay, that's unfortunate. But that is the case. So, but anyway, we're going to kick things off and let you know that we've got a host of people, of guests that we'd like to share with you this evening. And Ms. Garner, would you like to kind of move forward on this and take us a little bit further into this? Some of the things that you in a narrative, I'm sure you're probably been better off than I am on that. Okay.
Well, just to frame up our show for this evening, along with the narrative that Brother Edward just shared, we have the organizer of the 4th annual Summer Literacy Program that it's kind of comes out of Horry County, but it actually is far-reaching in that we have young people who participate every single year, and this is the 4th in a series of books that we've read. Not, I won't say they're directly connected in terms of a series, but in terms of the common themes and the focal point of the literacy program as it started and as it continues. And so we have our special guest, Marjorie McIver, tonight, who is the founder and organizer of that particular initiative. And then we also have several guests who participated in the summer reading program, and they will share with us their experiences tonight. So it's great to always have the youth join us whenever they can. We also have Dr. Kate Larson, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and talk about her connection to this wonderful endeavor that was spearheaded by Marilyn Hemingway of the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And so we have a full show tonight, full guests. We're going to see some artifacts and pictures.
We're in concert.
something like that. So yeah, absolutely. So let's start by bringing on Ms. Marjorie McIver, and then we will also bring on Marilyn Hemingway to begin this show tonight. Good evening, ladies. How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Yeah, it's always good to have you here, Marilyn, and we really appreciate both of you taking the time to join us tonight, and also to share with us this wonderful experience that ended with the unveiling of the Journey to Freedom sculpture in Georgetown. So before we get to that, let's start with Ms. McIver, if you will, frame up for us, what happened during the Summer Reading Initiative this year and why it was important to create an experience like this for the youth?
Well, this initiative really started with Marilyn. I don't think she knew that. But sometime in February.
Sometimes I don't think she knows, Ms. McIver. Sometimes I really don't think she knows. She realizes that sometimes.
Yeah. Sometime in February, I saw some promos and I heard her share that Harriet Tubman's sculpture would be coming to Georgetown. And that gave us the impetus to get this rolling. And so we were looking for some literature that we could use, the children could use to complete their project. And we had 2 age groups. And I'm in Charleston right now because Gwen and I were volunteering at the museum. So we about 3.5 hours of volunteering and showing people around and assisting in whatever way at the museum in Charleston. Now, I have in my hand the 28 folders of the young people who completed this project, who worked on the project from beginning to end. We started out with about 40 young people, but 28 stuck with the project. When I heard that Marilyn was bringing the statue to Georgetown, it just seemed like it was fitting and proper for us to use literature that would help in identifying those, I guess, things that Harriet Tubman did that created the change in American history. So we found out that Mr. Steve Williams had 2 books. The one book that we used for the younger participants who were, we have 5-year-olds in this program. So we used one book for him, and then we used the other book for the older young participants. They went through a series of activities. They had activity packets on the life and legacy of Harriet Tubman. These activities were submitted, some on a daily basis and some on a weekly basis, and they all pertain to Harriet Tubman. The culminating activity that the young people had was to create whatever they wanted to. It was like a show and tell, audio, visual, digital presentation. And we had, I think, 13 young people that shared their final projects with us. So I'm hopeful that tonight we'll get at least a snippet of some of the work that they did, because it was excellent, fantastic. Again, this is the 4th year in existence. The first year we had Ghost Boys, and that was a phenomenal book that the young people used that, shared a lot of issues that we were confronted with in our lives. And the next book was Stella by Starlight, Sharon Draper. And then we had the Watsons Go to Birmingham, and the Green Book by Victor Green. And so this year we used the 2 books by Steve Williams.
And so they were excellent selections for this year. And of course, our young people who are joining us tonight will share a little bit more about what they learned and their experiences along the way. But Ms. Mack, why is it important to make sure that the community gets involved in these types of literacy programs to, I guess, kind of, bridge the gaps in history, but also to connect the resources that we have to teach young people about our historic icons and also historic events like what happened in Georgetown? Why is it important to continue to do that?
I think it's important when I look at my years of coming up in the school system and not having been exposed to any of this literature. I tell them right now, I'm a lifelong learner. So I learn something new every day. And with this initiative that we had this year, I learned a lot about Harriet Tubman that I did not know before. And it also allowed the young people to learn more about the history that was missing from the textbooks, that they're not getting in school. And I think it's important for the community of parents to support the young people in the efforts in their schools when they're asked to make reports or to write essays. They've got some resources that they can use. And on this program itself, we've got valuable resources. Marilyn is used as a resource for the young people to contact if they need information on any particular issue that is relevant and important to the community. So I think it's important for the community to rally around this. We also know that in schools and in spaces and places that our history is being banned in those places. So if our young people don't pick up the torch and carry it and do this research and share, then we're going to be faced with a history that is lost. So it's important that the community rallies behind.
Awesome. Well, it was certainly a successful connection between you and Marilyn. And as you said, Marilyn didn't even have any idea that she was the inspiration or the catalyst for all this. But now you know, Marilyn. Now you know. So first of all, kudos to you and for any of your community partners and other resources that you were connected to in bringing the sculpture to Georgetown. And so I'm not even going to try to explain anything about what you did, because I definitely want you to let us know why you thought it was important to make sure that Harriet traveled this way, and tell us a little bit about how you pulled it all together. So Marilyn, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Ms. McIver, thank you very much that you acknowledge me as a catalyst, or the work I do has a catalyst for the literacy program, because on a personal level, my mother was a librarian. So, and I'm sure you knew that, but literacy, the libraries, books, reading on a very personal level are very important to me. So anything that furthers literacy reading, it's dear to my heart because of my mother and her impact on me. I was taught, if you can read, you can do anything. And it's so true. And especially with our history, that always motivates me. So there's two things that Ms. McIver already touched on that drove this project: education, the literacy part of it, knowing our history, and tourism. Because I have to remind folks, I started the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. It's a capitalistic organization. And that's a whole nother conversation about capitalism. But I was driven by creating generational wealth for my community. And that's capitalism, whether you agree with it or not. That's a whole nother conversation. But the education piece, I have learned through life, you cannot have generational wealth if you don't have education. And anything that captures the imagination, the creativity of our youth, and also those our age, because as Ms. McIver said, I learn something every day. Every day I'm learning something new. So that all motivates me and drives me. But why Harriet Tubman? And excuse my language, but Harriet Tubman is a badass. She is. Her story is, if it wasn't real, we would have thought it would have been a movie, right?
Right.
For what she overcame, one, being enslaved, being knocked in the head with an iron and knocked out into a coma, to recover from that, to hear voices, and she, God speaking to her, and that motivated her to escape and emancipate herself, then to be unselfish, to go back and bring others out. And that was just the beginning during prior to the Civil War. Then during the Civil War, to become a Union nurse, a Union spy, to lead men, because there were men who were in the army. It wasn't women. Women were the nurses. They were the help. the supporters, I should say, of the men, but to be a leader in the Union Army and emancipate 700 plus people overnight across 8 plantations. That in and of itself would have been just a normal person's life. That would have been like the icing on the cake. But she did so much more. And then to emancipate her grandnephew, who in 1867 moved to Georgetown, after she educated him, he moved to Georgetown. And because of the leadership that she showed him and how she raised him, he became a leader in Georgetown. And that's the direct tie. In his house that he built, he married a local Gullah Geechee woman, Laura, built his house. And everybody, you see the house now on the lot that is on, but he actually purchased that entire block. He owned that entire block. And in over decades, it was sold off and other people built their houses and stuff. I mean, he was truly a statesman. That's legacy. And that's what drives me on a very personal level. The legacy that I inherited from my parents and my grandparents, but the legacy that I want to leave others. And that's why history is so important for our young people, is that we have to recognize history is taught to us as in something that happened long ago. History is happening right now. We are making history. And our young folks, unfortunately, it's so removed. In particular, black and white pictures remove us from that knowledge. But when we bring something like the Journey to Freedom sculpture to Georgetown and we have wraparound events, this is truly history being made. So this past Saturday, a week and 2 days ago, I believe, we literally were making history. And I want our young people to see that. I want our young people to be a part of that so that they know, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, that they are making history every single day. And I hope it sinks into the point that it allows them to make brave decisions. And really, that is really how deep it is and how nuanced it is, that understanding the complexity of our history allows us to make brave decisions.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, your summation of the why, the purpose behind this, the passion behind this is incredible. And based on what you said, I could see in the final presentations of the young people who participate in the program that they indeed got it. They understand, and they are moving towards an even greater understanding. What was impressive about them as we went through the final presentations this weekend is that they have already formulated thoughts and ideas and ideals and solutions and things in their minds as we, reminded them that they are the future. And so, and that, history and knowing yourself is really a part of all of that, and how that we groom them and grow them into the leaders of tomorrow. And so, again, I think it was just, not even it was a sweet coincidence, but it definitely wasn't an intentional move on the universe's part to bring the two of you together and to make all of this happen. Like Ms. McIver, I said earlier, I can't even imagine sweeter timing than doing this particular book series and then having the Journey to Freedom sculpture come to Georgetown. So that was incredible. Marilyn, I want to continue this conversation about the history by bringing on another very special guest. And Ms. McIver can take all the credit for this because it was like an 11th hour ad. And I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. So Dr. Kate Larson, how are you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. This is really incredibly special. And thank you, Ms. McIver, for reaching out to me while I was there at the event over the weekend. It was just remarkable.
Right. So Dr. Larson, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So I am a professional historian, and I'm a specialist in Harriet Tubman. When I was getting my PhD in American history, I wrote my dissertation on Harriet Tubman. That was 20 years ago. And but since then, I've continued to research her life. And she is such an inspiring American human being. and her pursuit of freedom and equality and justice and self-determination is just it's so breathtaking. And so the event in Georgetown with her statue arriving, that is an example of how powerful her legacy continues to be. She died in 1913, and she was, 90 years old, and she still continues to inspire us. This tiny 5 foot tall Black woman that just changed the world. She continues to change the world. And not just, she inspires people around the world. There are, her story is told in China and Korea and in Europe and in Africa and here in America and South America. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I have to smile because Harriet is still, she's still moving forward and pushing us forward to keep doing the right thing and to keep fighting for those values that she cherished, which is freedom, equality, justice, self-determination, family, faith, community. It's all part of her inspiration for herself, and she wants everybody to be inspired by it too. And she really changed the world for America and many of us. And she continues to do that through sculptures and literacy programs, and Marilyn and her work, and you all having this community magazine program. It's just, I just keep thinking of her up there in heaven, smiling and clapping and singing and just, yeah, this is just what she wants and has wanted, and it will continue into the future.
Dr. Larson, as Ms. McIver described a few moments ago, the challenges that we have in education with bringing, these topics and historic icons to the forefront in the classrooms and in our school systems. What do you think is going to be, I guess, the turn along this journey as we battle those, those forces that try to keep history in the backdrop, the real history in the backdrop? What do you think is going to be the turning point? Do you think it's going to be more events and community gatherings like this as a way to make sure that history is not forgotten and that we understand our backgrounds and our backdrops and the things that have, created all of these wonderful movements in history? Or do you think that there will hopefully be a turn where we can one day see more of this in the classroom? What do you think there?
So I have confidence and faith that we will see more of this in the classroom, but events like this and that statue touring the country is a way to make sure that this history is alive. And so when I was there during this event in Georgetown, Maryland, you and your team did an amazing job. That was a huge audience, and it was diverse too. It was breathtaking for me. It brought me to tears. And I just know that Harriet's message, her legacy lives on. You cannot squash it. You can't. They couldn't squash her back then, 150 years ago. They can't do it today. So let's be inspired by her. And she's going to say, fight, keep fighting this battle, because the truth, the history is so important. And literacy is so valuable. She could not read or write that written word, but she wanted to be sure that her nephew, James Bowley, had an education so that he could continue and change the world in Georgetown and in so many ways. His legacy lives on there in Georgetown and in South Carolina and across the nation now because of Marilyn, Steve, and his books that he's written, Steve Williams. I think this is how it works. This is how we carry this story forward, and we fulfill the promise of the Declaration of Independence, which was not a promise for Harriet Tubman. She had to fight for her freedom. She had to take it
Mm.
and fight for it. And so while it's not quite the same thing as when she was an enslaved person, we still have the battles before us. And let's take that inspiration from Harriet Tubman, who had so few resources, but she had the power of self and her faith, her family, the community, and that vision of freedom and equality that drove her every single day. And she imparted that to James Bowley and the rest of her relatives and descendants who live on today to carry on that message. And we can do that too.
Absolutely. Right.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Angela.
Marilyn. No, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say I agree with Kate and what she just said, and I hope the children take this Harriet, what they've learned from Harriet and what we've done in Georgetown, and they take a look around Horry County. They take a look around Conway and recognize their heroes. We have heroes like Harriet Tubman. Many of us know about her. We may not know about the full story, but we generally kind of know the name, right? But there are people in Horry County, Georgetown County, who are just as important that I like to say they're everyday heroes. You know, we take them for granted and don't recognize they've done some great things. And I hope one of the legacies that's left is that we recognize our local heroes and we celebrate them. There is a child coming out of this literacy program that Ms. McIver has started that's going to write a book one day about the Black history of Horry County. That's the impact we're looking for. Coming in Georgetown, I don't know how we're going to live up to Harriet Tubman. This is a 3-month event, but the plans are, and I forgot to announce this on August the 5th, is to have a Joseph Hayne Rainey Heritage Festival. We will have that next year. Not 3 months long, but we need to celebrate Joseph Hayne Rainey, who was the first Black U.S. congressman ever.
That's right. Absolutely.
From Georgetown, South Carolina. And we actually have the sculpture in the park named after him. And there is so much that can be done just for him. So that's part of moving forward, the legacy that we hope to also continue.
I believe was there recently a post office named after him, or?
Yes, in Georgetown, they named the post office after him. There was a little politics involved with it, so they have not changed the name on the post office.
Yeah.
But it was officially named after him, and I'm glad you brought that up because we need, as a community, we need to make sure that that's finished, that the name is put on the post office. Mm-hmm.
Well, Marilyn, and to your point about that, as you were talking about recognizing our local heroes and icons and people who've impacted our local history. Well, they think they've only impacted our local history. They've actually impacted our world history. Mm-hmm. I hope that this catches like wildfire and we see more of this in Horry County, Marion County, Williamsburg County, all the surrounding counties will actually see more initiatives like the one that you spearheaded, the one that Ms. McIver does, but for the most part, working to make sure that these historic figures are recognized. And so, I'm sure we have a ton of first and lots of Black history in Horry County. And Ms. McIver, I'm feeling like we need to do something to get on a Marilyn Hemingway level. You know what I mean? So we definitely need to work harder to put our historic figures in the forefront and to bring people like Dr. Larson to our communities to help educate everyone about the importance of, making sure that these things are, perpetually placed in our communities. And so what I want to show right now is just a few slides from the actual event. And then we're going to get to the youth in just a moment. Before I do that, Verdell Beckman, thank you for joining us. She has a question. Where's the statue's permanent home? And she says she's just North Santee Community proud and wishes her mother, Irene Beckman, was here to witness this. So where is the statue, or where will it be, and for how long, Marilyn?
Oh, at this time, it does not have a permanent home. Wesley Wofford, the sculptor, he lives outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I'm assuming eventually it will have a permanent home, but right now it is traveling the nation. And after it leaves us, it goes to Brook Green Gardens. Then after it leaves Brook Green Gardens, I can't remember what state it's going to, but it is going to come back to South Carolina at the new International African American Museum. Probably about this time next year, it will be at the museum. And I've already had inquiries from Georgia. It's never been to Georgia, but they've heard about what's going on in Georgetown. So they've reached out wanting it to come to Georgia. I'm in Beaufort, South Carolina, because I was in Brunswick, Georgia today, doing some things down there, and reached out to the community. So hopefully they will get organized and they'll be able to bring it to Georgia. So right now it's moving around different states. It's moving around the nation. Georgetown is probably the smallest community it has traveled to. So we wanted to make it really special. And that's why we have all the wraparound events that are happening with this sculpture, and just the extra programs like the literacy program we're a small community and we want to compete with the Philadelphias.
I'm sure that's going to happen.
Yeah. So
I'm sure that's going to happen.
I think people, we advertised in USA Today. So this is national news. It may not have made ABC or CBS enough, but people nationwide are quite aware that this sculpture is in our area.
Well, I kind of liken it to a Underground Railroad reimagined, because she is traveling all around the country, all around the world, creating these new routes, instilling, our rich history in all of these small towns. It's a reawakening of the historic significance of her contributions. And so, as Dr. Larson said, she's still alive and well. It's just, now the Underground Railroad is more about educating everyone on what she did. And so I think that that's wonderful that, we are definitely a part of that. And I'm going to claim Georgetown as well, because I have relatives in Georgetown and my footprint's down there as well. So I say we. But absolutely. So I want to recognize some of our audience members who are tuning in today, and then we're going to get to the slideshow in just a moment. I'm just going to scroll through the slides, and maybe you all can help us to identify who's in the slides. But I want to thank you, Coretta Smalls, whose roots are in Burgess, but she's now in Greenville, South Carolina. Verdell Beckman, thank you so much for joining us out of Columbia, South Carolina. Josephine Burgos, roots here in Conway, but she's now watching out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And then, of course, Orton Bellamy is with us this evening as well. So thank you all for joining us. And these are just the persons who are brave enough to comment. We have lots of people who are watching, but we always love the interactivity. So if you have any comments or questions for our guests, please let us know by dropping them into the thread, and I'm sure that they will get to them. So here is just a few pictures. And Marilyn, Dr. Larson, Ms. McIver, Brother Edward, you were there and taking these photos. If you can explain to us what we're seeing here, that would be great.
Yeah, Marilyn, you can help me out whenever you can. Right on the right there is the Miss South Carolina.
Yes.
I've got a young lady's name. Marilyn, you know her name.
Jada Samuel, Miss South Carolina. She's from Greenville, but first she was Miss Five Rivers, which is the Georgetown representative. Right. And then she became Miss Greenville, and then she became Miss South Carolina in June 2023. So she's new as Miss South Carolina. And I do have to say she's an Alpha Kappa Alpha member. Because that's my sorority. And so we were happy. We were delighted to have her join us. She loves history. She heard about what was going on with Harriet and volunteered to come. There was a fee that one of our local realtors picked up the fee to get her here, and we were just delighted to have her spend the weekend with us.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is right after the cover came off the sculpture. I mean, literally.
Yeah, you can see. Yeah, you can see Steve pulling. Yeah, Steve pulling the cover off.
Yeah, Steve and Wesley Walford, the sculptor.
Right.
Who is that?
That's
that beautiful woman
there. This lady just did a great job at narrating and navigating us through that day. Seemed like she had everything timed to a T. Okay, it seemed that way. And
I did. So Kate, Dr. Larson and I, along with Wesley Walford, his wife Odyssey, Tina Wyatt, the great grandniece of Harriet Tubman, Steve Williams, Tandaji Bailey. We all had, and Miss South Carolina, Jada Samuel. We all had dinner together the night before, because I like to bring everybody together and just spend some quiet time. You know, that's how you build friendships. That breaking bread together is what we did. And during the meal, I said, I have everything timed.
Yeah, that's right.
You got 2 minutes. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, some of us took a little bit longer, but that's okay.
I love it.
I actually did have everything timed. You joke, but Marilyn, that's my thing. I time everything. But it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. This is
the great grandniece of Harriet Tubman, Ernestine Tina Martin Wyatt, and that's her during her speech.
Right, and she was gracious enough to be. She resides in Washington D.C. and just not too long ago, she celebrated the 200th birthday, I believe, of Harriet Tubman up in Auburn, New York, and
Dr. Larson and Tina Wyatt spend a lot of time going to different events. They get invited to different Harriet Tubman events across the nation.
Yeah. Well, Miss Tina was so gracious to go to the Myrtle Beach Colored Museum and share some of her history with them, followed by just a wonderful meal at Big Mike's. So she did a great job in supporting the Myrtle Beach community as well.
Ms. Mack, who are these wonderful individuals?
Those are a few of the young people who traveled with us from Conway, and the young lady with the blue on and the sunglasses, that's our mayor, the Honorable Barbara Blaine Bellamy. She traveled with us on the bus. We had about 40 plus persons on the bus, and I think there were over 20 car riders, some coming from different areas of the Charleston, Conway communities. And
that's wonderful.
Some of the young people.
I thought that was absolutely stunning. They left like they had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, on Saturday morning, I believe.
All right. The lovely lady who made me look good in the picture is on the show tonight. Thank you, Miss Kidd, for making me look good.
And that's Steve Williams. That's when we were doing the learning part of the program. We had an education committee, Christy Kibler and Daniel Turner with the school district and the library systems. They, along with Steve, made up our education committee. And this is where we had our art, essay, and oratorical competition in Georgetown County. And I must say those kids did a wonderful job also with the essay and the oratorical speech, and really enjoyed it. That's actually where I really got teary-eyed. And I have to tell y'all, the last 2 weeks, I have been very emotional. It's goosebumps. And I'm not a crier, but it's been very emotional journey. And one of the reasons is because of the work that the education committee did, the work that the children did, our students did in Georgetown County. And this is when they were presenting the awards. And of course, our Low Country Veterans Group in Georgetown. We wanted this program to be very diverse. Not only was the audience diverse, but if you really were there, and there are videos of this program all over Facebook, very diverse program and very intentional about that. But this is our Low Country Veterans Group presenting the colors, because Harriet Tubman was a Union veteran. So we wanted to honor that service. And this is Mayor Carol Giroux of Georgetown and her speech welcoming everyone to the program.
Well, definitely an awesome display of highlights. And it couldn't have been looks like a more beautiful day for an unveiling. So kudos to all of you. A fantastic job, Marilyn, Dr. Larson, for being a part of this. And of course, the icon, Miss Marjorie McIver, for sharing and bringing the children and the youth down to Georgetown to see this historic moment. We really do appreciate all that you've done to create such a wonderful summer literacy experience. It really was a very comprehensive experience from book to just a live unveiling. I mean, that was amazing, absolutely amazing, and everything in between. So I know that our young people who are joining us tonight are anxious to be a part of the show.
April, can I introduce before I forget? I just want to send appreciation to some of the supporting cast for allowing this to happen. That was the people who supplied the bus that came from Chesterfield Missionary Baptist Church in Longs. It's Pastor J.R. Matthews there, and he supplied the major buses. That, if I'm not concerned, Ms. McIver, correct me if I'm wrong. With I think it held about 40 students, I believe, 40 people.
40 plus.
40 plus, yeah.
40, yeah.
And they supplied the bus for getting down there. So just wanted to say kudos to Chesterfield Missionary Baptist Church in Long, South Carolina. And Miss Vernell McDowell was the point of interest there, point of contact. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
April,
well, thanks for that community partnership. Yes. Go ahead, Ms. McIver.
Before we go off the air, you can take me off as the young people come on, because they were just fantastic. But I want to thank Steve Williams, who, in spite of that long day that he had, he met the young people at Bethel, the historic Bethel AME Church, and shared history with them. So we certainly thank him for doing that, having that personal touch, as well as autographing all of these books that we purchased.
Right.
So he took the time to do that as well.
Yeah, that like I said, it was a massive coordination, and I know that our youth really appreciate it. And so, with that being said, I'm going to say thank you to Ms. McIver, Marilyn Hemingway, and Dr. Kate Larson for being a part of the show this evening. And now we're going to switch places and bring on the real stars of the show, the young people who participated in the summer literacy program. So Marilyn is really excited about that. So is Dr. Larson. And I tell you, they are a special group of people. So I'm going to just bring them on one at a time. So Desmond, there we go. And then we have Carlin. Okay, Carlin, we need some light in that room. We have Savannah and Elia. All right, awesome. Carson, oh, there he is. He's turning the light back on. Hello, everybody. How are y'all? How are you doing? It's not like I didn't see you like 2 days ago. Good one. All right. Well, welcome to the show. How did you feel seeing that recap of the weekend that you spent down in Georgetown?
It was exciting.
Yes, very exciting. Yeah. And so, as we shared with the audience that's listening and watching tonight, you all participated in the summer literacy program and had, as a part of your projects and activities, a culminating project where you had to put together a final presentation that pretty much depicted what you learned about Harriet Tubman and her travels and, all of the endeavors and contributions, the impact on South Carolina, everything that I'm sure that you might have heard of in small part, but you learned about in a big way over the summer. And I, for one, want to say that I truly enjoyed your presentations on Saturday and on Sunday. And so I'm going to, share with our audience some of the artifacts in just a little bit. But I do want you all to just kind of talk a little bit about your experiences. And so we'll do a little round robin, and just like we did over the weekend. And I'd like for each of you to, talk about at least one great thing that you learned from this experience over the summer. And so we're going to start with Elia.
Hi. First,
and Elia, will you please let everyone know your age?
I'm 12. I'm turning 13 in 2 days. But really, I'm always excited to do something over the summer with GMA, especially in the summer literacy. And really what stood out to me is learning more in detail what my ancestors had to face during the travels. I mean, we've always known that they had hardship, but we really didn't know the extent of it. So, always learning about that and what they faced to get us to freedom is always interesting to learn about. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Savannah?
Hi, I'm 16. Through this summer, it was really interesting because I came in late, so I had to catch up. But learning all the things about Harriet, of course, like, man, I don't know your name. But of course, like she said that, like a lot of hardships going through Harriet Tubman and what everybody had to go through. Of course, like I know about Harriet Tubman and I learned a few things about her life, of course, but I had to really go in depth this summer. And it was very interesting and it was really not, I wouldn't say hard, but it's just like emotional to see what everybody and Harriet Tubman had to go through. And I really liked last year's literacy program because I did it last year and it was really cool. So,
all right, awesome. Carlin?
It was a very fun experience going down to see the statue and stuff because, Gma keeps all of us working over the summer. Not that many, she always keeps us working. So it was really fun to go down and look at the statue, and I learned a lot. I knew about Harriet Tubman, but I learned a lot more than I did during this project. So
All right. And for those of you who are watching, the reference to GMA is Miss McIver. They're talking about Miss McIver. That's their nickname for her. Yeah, GMA. So, and Desmond, last but not least, Desmond.
Hi, I'm 17. This summer literacy this year, it was exciting. I got to know a little bit more about Harriet than reading books. I would just say the things that I learned through it was that you can't stop chasing what you want to get to, like how Harriet helped free the slaves, went through the Underground Railroad, and she didn't stop.
That's right. She didn't stop. She did not stop. So as you all were working on your projects, and a lot of you took a unique approaches to presenting your final presentation. I noticed that there were some common things that you all highlighted: the slave auction blocks, the life of Harriet Tubman, and a few other things that we learned about over the weekend, and from what you all learned about over the summer. As you were thinking about Harriet's life, what was the one thing that you believe Harriet really wanted for her people? And how did she accomplish that? So we're going to go in reverse. Desmond.
May you say the question again, please?
Yeah. What did Harriet really want for her people? And how did she accomplish it?
Well, she wanted freedom for them. She wanted them, I wouldn't say to be left alone, but I would say free. She accomplished it by not stopping and through the Underground Railroad and with other people's help.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else want to add? Carlin, Aliyah? Yes, Carlin.
I believe she wanted them to be able to experience a better education for them to learn how to read and write so they can get good jobs and live on their own and not be confined by slavery.
How about you, Savannah? I see you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think she would want them to have respect and love for themselves and for their people because like through those hard times, through slavery, like they didn't have any respect. They were treated like animals, not humans. So I think, of course, she would want freedom for her people, but also respect and love because some slaves, they felt like they couldn't be loved. So respect and love is my two.
Okay. All right. And Aliyah.
I feel like Harriet Tubman really wanted our people to be free, not only free, but to have determination to like fight for our generation, because if it wasn't for her determination, many of us will still be like thinking that we can't achieve certain things. So I feel like she achieved that by the community and coming together with other slaves such as like Frederick Douglass to achieve things that, you know, they wanted to achieve for us.
Absolutely. So just like Ms. McIver and Marilyn and Dr. Larson, Steve Williams, even Brother Edward, you know, so many others in the community were a part of a network. She had a network that she worked with as well, people who were helping her, who served as resources to allow her to, you know, stay on mission, to stay on point. And so you're right. You know, all of your answers are correct as far as what Harriet wanted for her people. And because of that, we are still talking about her today because, as you all know, we are still fighting for those freedoms. We're fighting for the love and respect, and we're fighting to, you know, just remain determined to keep pushing and like Desmond says, to follow through on our dreams. So what I'd like to know from each of you is, what was one of the things that you noticed about the sculpture after it was unveiled? What was one of the things that yes, go ahead, Desmond.
Like I said Saturday, it was the big hand for me. That's the first thing I noticed once they unveiled it.
And why do you think that the hand was so prominent? What did we talk about over the weekend as far as why that might have been a prominent part of that sculpture?
It was because, like all of us said, some of us said, it was recognizing her strength, the hardship, the pain that she went through, all the, what was the song? I got the whole world in my hands.
Yeah.
And a few other things that I can't get right now, but it was really good.
Okay. Anyone else want to add? Oh, hands are up. Great, Carlin.
I noticed that the little, I want to say child, but the child that she was holding back, when I first saw it, I thought it was representing John Bowley, but then when we expanded on it, we talked about how it was depicting a younger version of Harriet Tubman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was amazing as far as that vision for the sculpture to show a younger Harriet being led by an older Harriet. You know, what great vision for that, Elia.
When I first saw the statue, I saw the fist, which I thought represented strength and not giving up, but also her holding the child kind of represented to me not leaving anyone behind. And she was kind of holding on to that child with like all her strength because she never left a passenger behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all
Savannah?
of those things. Yeah.
Yes, all of those things, right, Brother Edward?
Yeah.
So
I wasn't there when I saw it, but when I saw the picture when you were showing the slideshow, the first thing I noticed were like her, like before. I mean, okay, so at first I saw her eyes, like her eyes were like big and wide, and the second thing I saw was the little girl, the young Harriet, and like everybody said, it had me like think how determined she was in her eyes and how much power she had trying to save the little girl and trying to save her younger self or just representative of other little people her saving or
Okay, all right. So you all worked on several projects and activities for some time over the summer that led to that field trip. Can you describe for us, the audience doesn't know what you all worked on, can you describe some of the activities you were asked to complete? And then we're going to show just a snippet or two of the artifacts, including the dolls. So who wants to describe or explain what you all had to do over the summer? And I think, Carlin, you might be in a different age group. So if we could take one from each age group, that would be great. So Desmond, you take the older group.
So an activity we worked on was we had to work on a crossword puzzle that Gma put in, and we also had to write an essay on the words when we figured out the words for the crossword.
Okay. Anyone else want to add? What were some of the other projects that you worked on?
We also had to do our courage assignment, where we it asks us about 10 questions about how much courage Harriet had, and it was just different questions related to courage, so we had to answer those.
Okay. All right. You all had a craft project. I'll call it a craft project. What were you all creating over the summer, aside from doing these activities? Go ahead, Elia. Mm-hmm.
We had to create a doll, which either represented a slave or Harriet Tubman. And I mean, when I was doing the doll, it really was significant in bringing, the culture of African heritage and all that. So it really represented where we came from and what we still stand for in our people.
Wow, man, that's creative there.
Isn't it? Look at this. Yeah. these are just a few of the dolls that were created, Brother Edward, and one even had movable parts. So I know that those of you who are with us today, your doll is probably shown on this screen. So Desmond, I believe you all worked on the one that has the 3 dolls. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And so as you were making these dolls and you were, thinking about what you wanted your doll to look like, what did you really want your character or your doll to represent? Anyone can answer that.
For my doll, I wanted each color to mean something. So, I mean, not just colors and anything, but for the gold, I have the one on the bottom left. It represented her being a warrior, which really shows how determined she was as a person and for her freedom.
Okay. Does anyone else want to talk about their dolls? I love the colors, and of course, vibrant colors are shown throughout our culture in so many different ways. So yeah, the doll project was definitely one of the truly fascinating projects that you all had to work on. And so you also had to do this final project, and there were so many different ways that you all could approach it. You could do newsletters, final presentations. Desmond, you all even had a display that showed and do you have that with you? Can you show that?
Yes, ma'am. My mom's getting it now.
Okay, all right, perfect. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. But, all of these projects were really, well organized in terms of giving you an idea of how to not only just, read about your history, but also be involved in creating something tangible that represents your history. So I'm going to pull up just a moment. I think Desmond is still trying to get, yes, there it is. Okay, so Desmond, why don't you explain the project that we're seeing here?
Okay, so this is a slave auction block that me and my family helped me build. And Gma had wanted someone to do in the auction block, so we decided to do it and everything. We had put chains. We have the little girl, the father, and the mother, and then the slave auction block sign, and they're all about to be sold.
So are those chains that they're connected with?
They're all connected together.
I mean, the chains, right? Little.
Yes, that's what they are. Mm-hmm.
Chains, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Slave
that's what
chains.
They are. Right.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now, Desmond, since you're already speaking, I'm going to just pull up your presentation and I'm going to slide through it real quick. But can you give us just a really brief description of what you and your sister captured in your presentation as it relates to what you just showed us? So you all talk more about the slave auction and slave auction block in your presentation. So just give us a brief explanation of what your presentation was about.
So our presentation was about auction blocks. We showed some pictures. We also had some pictures of slaves being sold, slaves being pulled away from their families. We also typed about what was going on in these pictures. We also have a slide right there that shows that I didn't even know about, that are slave auction blocks that were from, I can't remember, Florida to all the way up north during those times.
And so as the two of you were working on this project together, how did it make you feel? I kind of focused on that a lot over the weekend and wanted to know how you all felt learning about, these aspects of history. And also, as you think about how it made you feel, how does that relate to things that are going on in society today? Have we come a long way? Do we still have a long way to go? And I know that it might not be as deep as a slave auction block happening somewhere, but there's still remnants of even in large ways of racism and inequality and injustices that are happening throughout the country. So as you were learning this stuff, Desmond, how did it make you feel? And what are your thoughts about our history?
I know we still have a long way to go. There's still some racism out here and discrimination. It made me, I don't want to say angry, but it made me feel upset to see these things while we were doing the pictures and everything. It brought a tear to my eye a little bit, but I remembered that our ancestors came a long way to get us here, but we still have a long way to go to have peace in the world and no more racism. And it's just upsetting just to see those pictures as you go online to look for them.
Mm-hmm. And we also talked about, what thoughts Harriet Tubman would have about today. And so share some of the thoughts that you all had about, what you think Mother Tubman would think of the things that are going on today. Elia as well. Go ahead, Desmond and Elia.
She can go ahead.
Okay.
Can you repeat it? I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, if Mother Tubman were here today, what would she think about what's going on in society today? We talked about this over the weekend. And you had a great answer.
I feel like if she was still here today, she would probably keep fighting. Like, honestly, if she was still here, I feel like we would be further ahead because of her determination. And now that we're learning about like her history and all that, I feel like we can get the determination she had and still achieve like the things that she did, but in today's society.
Okay. And one of you said you think that she wouldn't necessarily be mad, but she would be disappointed. Who said that? One of you said that. Savannah, yes, explain.
Yes, when I said that she wouldn't be mad, but she would be disappointed and upset because she worked so hard. And everybody back then, they worked so hard and they fought and they went through all this hardship. And it hasn't really, like Layla said this weekend, she said that like we have more rights and we have more freedom than back then. And of course, some things did change and some things did get affected because of people who have worked and who have fought for our freedom. And it like it has been affected, but some things have not changed. And she just wouldn't, I just don't think she would be proud because of how we are today and how people act and how people's mindsets are still today. It just, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think.
Okay. I'm going to go back to Elia for just a second. This is your presentation, and you did a poster. So I'm just going to scroll through it. If you could just briefly describe it.
Yes, ma'am. So for my project, I did kind of like an autobiography of Harriet Tubman. And on the left side, it talks about her residency, her goals, some quotes about her, as well as her success. And in her success, it kind of talks about, what some things she did, not only for the freedom of slaves, but also women's rights. And also her being the first woman to be like a Union spy. And her talents and intelligence speaks about how, like, when she was on her journey, she had to tell between plants and different things like that and which ones to use for medicine and food. And on the bottom, I have my doll, which I put the gold represents warrior, the white represents freedom, and the black represents strength. And in the middle of the poster, it has a map of the Underground Railroad, and I wanted people to kind of like see how large it was and how many of our ancestors had to go so far for freedom, and just for us to have determination in this world to be wherever we want to be.
Absolutely. Good job. Good, excellent depiction. Very thorough, from goals, successes to talents and everything in between. All of these projects are wonderful. I'm going to bring up Carlin's project here. It's the Harriet Times. Carlin, tell us a little bit about the Harriet Times.
Real quick, I just wanted to say, from what Elia was saying, I think it's very like, I didn't know this about Harriet Tubman, but I feel like it's like very cool to know that she was inducted into the International Intelligence Hall of Fame or something like that. I think that's what it was. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
I just think that's very cool, and I don't want to say misinformation, but I believe she's the first African American woman to be in the Hall of Fame. Am I correct?
I can't support you on that. I don't know, but it was rarity. She was a
Did
rarity.
one of you bring up that historic fact in your presentations? Oh, Dr. Larson says yes, Carlin. So very, very good, Carlin. Carlin, I don't think you had a chance to tell the audience how old you are.
Oh yeah, I was gonna. When we first introduced each other, I was supposed to say that. I forgot.
It's okay.
Yes, I'm 12 years old and I live in Charleston.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about the Harriet Times.
So I put it's mainly speaks about the accomplishments of John Bowley and how successful he was in Georgetown and how much Harriet Tubman really influenced. Well, no, I keep saying it was John Bowley who was his James Bowley, John's son. How successful James was in Georgetown, and because his aunt Harriet taught him and like got him a good education, and really their accomplishments and how John Bowley's family was freed. And some are Harriet Tubman's what do I call it? Her routes for the Underground Railroad and how many different ways she would take, how many different routes she would take to go through the Underground Railroad. And I thought it was really fascinating when I looked at the picture I put up on my slideshow.
Your newsletter also focused on the impact on South Carolina. Can you describe that a little bit for us?
The impact that it says the impact on South Carolina, saying how when James got his education, he moved to Georgetown and he became very successful, and he became the commissioner of Georgetown County Schools. He was also employed in various careers such as a teacher, a lawyer, a state legislator, a newspaper publisher, and a probate judge. And like you said, he owned multiple properties in a whole plot in Georgetown. And yeah, that's what I meant by impact on South Carolina.
So it says a lot that, even during those times, people like James Bowley still had a huge measure of success, because you have to remember that there were still very trying times. And so I'm sure it was hard to break through certain barriers in order to do the things that he did, commissioner of the schools and everything else. And so, that's great history for us to know. And it kind of goes back to that theme that you all have been talking about as far as, pressing forward and, keep on fighting and following your dreams. And, one thing that we learned about Harriet was that, she followed the North Star in order to stay on route. But then we also talked about in one of the groups how everyone has an internal North Star. And one of the participants in the program said, their greatest takeaway was that we must follow our own North Star. So I think that, all of your projects are showing that even through the trials and the tribulations, the struggles and the tests, through the, injustices and everything that Harriet Tubman faced, there was still some greatness that came out of even those hard times, And in Savannah, you also did let's see, here's Savannah's newsletter. You also did a newsletter. Tell us briefly about your newsletter.
Well, my newsletter was technically about just what Harriet Tubman did in her life, like all the different jobs that she had. She was a nurse. She was in the armed operations, and how she, of course, traveled through the Underground Railroad. And I also talked about the different routes that she took also, and how traveling through those routes and paths and taking all those people several times, going back and forth, like there was a lot of conditions that she had to face, like weather conditions and people like complaining and getting tired. And I was just talking a lot about all her hard times. And then I was also talking about how she saved her family and went back to Maryland about 13 times to go save her family. And I was also talking about how she just persevered through all of that, and how she had time still to have faith and still like kept going, because going through all of that and having to have other people on her too, and still remaining strong and with her faith and following her North Star, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength, and I commend her. I love, yeah.
I'm sure she's commending you from the heavens above. That is certainly the truth. So all of your projects were great, and I'm so thankful that you all could be here tonight to share the projects. I want to bring Ms. McIver on just one more time, because there's one more project that we have to share, and it was very unique by a very unique little man who I call Farmer Jordan. And so I'm going to bring Ms. Mac back, and then we're going to share. We're going to share The Amazing Garden by Jordan Floyd. So, Miss Mac, tell us a little bit about Farmer Jordan Floyd.
Jordan.
Yes. It looks like you're still muted.
Well, this amazing garden is being realized by an amazing 6-year-old.
Everybody, six.
Picture of Jordan. He just turned 6 last month. Jordan has an interest in growing things, and Jordan was one of those young, I'll call it little boys, who grew up into quite a young man so quickly, until we didn't realize all of these potentials that he has. And if Jordan were on right now, he could articulate this for himself. He is taught that eventually we all might need to grow a garden. Jordan was given some starter vegetable seeds and plants and whatever by Ms. Zenobia Harper, who's also one of our resource persons from the Georgetown area. But in addition to that, Jordan has planted in that garden. It's something you'll have to hear him share with you. But he's got zucchini, he's got melons, he got watermelons,
Hibiscus. He said hibiscus. Yes.
He's got tomatillos. How many of you know what tomatillos are? He's got tomatillos. I mean, he's got some of everything in that garden. And he was asked, what is it about this garden that you want to share? He said just as loudly and as boldly as he could, I just like to see the seeds sprout. I'm saying a 6-year-old language like that, but this is what he did for his final project. And that brings in the culture of our heritage, how he talked about growing the fruits and the vegetables so that it could feed his family. He said he's growing his garden to feed his family. This is a 6-year-old.
So, Ms. Mac, can you mind tell us who these mighty parents of Jordan are?
That's Jamal and Jasmine Floyd, and they have he has two awesome sisters, Mariah and Malia, who did their presentation on Saturday. But this is awesome, and I think we're going to have a show and tell where we're going to invite the entire community out to that garden to see what it is. And he talked about going to the store and getting compost to put in this garden so it can grow. So I can't wait until these seeds sprout into what it is that Jordan says it's going to sprout into, and we will take a visit to that garden.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The pictures here that you all are seeing, that's Jordan in the blue. The little boy in the pictures is Jordan, and as you can see, he's working, gloves and all. He is digging and planting. And I said to him, most little kids may have a lemonade stand and they're selling lemonade for the summer, but now you can start your own fruit stand. I'll definitely be a customer. And he said, I'm just growing fruits and vegetables to feed my family. I just want to feed my family.
And he also said, and I love working. I love to work.
Yes, absolutely. So we just had to share that with you, even though he's not here this evening, because it is definitely an aspect of the Gullah Geechee culture, and it's definitely an aspect of, even Harriet's journey, because as Savannah and Elia said before, even along the journey, she had to figure out which plants were medicinal, and probably they ate from the land and in order to survive on their journey. And so, here's little farmer Jordan, who has learned how to grow his own food. And I told him, I said, you probably are the answer to some of our food deserts in the area. And he has a very promising future if he wants to go into agriculture. So, Miss Mac, you could say you knew him when.
That's right. That's right.
You can say you knew him when. So I'm going to try to play one more thing this evening, and I hope that we can play it. This particular video clip was produced by members of the Muhammad family, and they did an amazing job of animating a story and creating the voiceover for the characters in the story. Now, this clip is running a little long, and so I don't know if this platform will be able to support it, but we're going to try. And I think they were trying to enter the studio, but they may have had some technical difficulties, but they did an amazing job. And Ms. Mac, how old are the individuals in this particular family? Samaya, Tariq, the whole family participated, I think it was, in this particular production.
everyone has a voiceover in this story that they have presented to us. We had a Scholastic magazine, and I gave it to the family, and they decided that they were going to do a voiceover. Samaya is 10 years old. Tariq is 8 years old. And Karima is 5 years old. And if you listen to these voices, and the mom and dad are also playing a major part in the voiceover. But when you listen to them, you should be able to identify the 5-year-old from the 8-year-old and the 10-year-old and the parents.
Always stays where it is. When you find it, it'll show you which way is north. Today, people may know my name as Harriet Tubman, but when I was born, I was called Araminta or Minty. I was the fifth of 9 children born in Maryland around 1822.
When's your birthday?
I don't know.
How can you not know your birthday?
It's because I was enslaved. Back when I was growing up, in certain parts of the country, if you were black, you were most likely enslaved. We didn't have a choice. Being enslaved meant we were forced to work without pay. We were treated terribly.
I cut my hand. I don't care. Keep working.
Can we have water?
No. Keep going.
We lived in tiny shacks with no windows. We slept on the floor or in boxes filled with straw. As children, we had to wear sacks, and they certainly did not celebrate our birthdays or keep records of when we were born. Worst of all, being enslaved meant we were property, no different from a horse or a piece of furniture. That meant my family, my mom and dad included, was owned by someone else. They could sell us, and they did. Where are my sisters going?
Our owners sold them. They'll have new owners now.
Please, Mama. Please don't let them take us.
Slaves were supposed to do whatever our owners told us.
So, Ms. McIver, it's quite an incredible endeavor for children that young to be able to create a production like this. Do you hear the inflection in their voices? And they really became the characters. And I think along the way, and we already know that this group is a highly intelligent group of young people. Everyone on the screen is. But I think that, one of the things that the Muhammad family, should be acknowledged for is the fact that as a family, they were learning this history together. And I know that a lot of the young people here actually work with their families as well on their projects. Farmer Jordan worked with his parents on the project, and Desmond and Destiny had some help from their parents. And I'm sure, Carlin, Elias, Savannah, everyone else had some kind of help or guidance. And it's important for families to actually come together, even during the summer literacy time, to just share in these moments, because, the children are being presented with some, wonderful content, some interesting activities, but it's the family share time that I think really resonates with them as they learn our history, and they can ask questions and even find out about their own personal family story. So that might not have been a goal as far as something that was like a direct instruction, but it certainly is a wonderful result of the projects that they worked on this weekend or this summer.
So you're looking for Ms. Mack?
Listen, all I've got to say is, just thank you, young people. Thank you, students. Thank you for putting this effort to create quality products. Thank you for the spirit that you showed in creating these projects. Thank you for participating in the field trip experience to Georgetown. And I heard the excitement, even in Georgetown, of how you felt about what you were doing. I want you to continue to do it. I really didn't have to prod or pull anybody this year as they started working on the projects. They kept seeing that they could take it to another level, and they certainly did it with this project. So I look forward to next year. Kudos to all of you, and your checks will be in the mail shortly.
Oh, that was the other wonderful little piece of this summer literacy program. Hard work always pays off.
Yeah,
right,
it always pays off.
Hard work always pays off.
Always pays off.
And we want to thank the committee that worked with it. April always does the digital pieces and giving and, advice to the young people as to how they can expand on certain ideas through her talks and conversations with them. We have Ms. Marlo Frazier, who usually does the digital piece, but she was traveling a lot this summer. My daughter, Hannah, who I guess initially when we started the project gave us those first few books that we used and was very active with the project, but she's got a future pro baseball player that she is traveling around the states with. So she critiqued and proofread a lot of the materials and gave advice on that. We have, and behind me, Miss Gwen Alston.
Hey, my babies.
Listen, she was waiting to say something.
Yes.
I'm Gwen.
They're all smiling really hard. They're all smiling really hard, yes.
Yeah, Gwen is an artist, and even at the Atlantic Beach Festival, and whenever we have these festivals, she does all of the face painting, the heritage and cultural kinds of face painting that goes along with these Gullah Geechee festivals. She does all of that. So Marilyn.
So that's who did those weird paintings.
They're not weird. And they were color coded, and those colors represented something within our heritage. So Marilyn, if you're still listening, if you need some Gullah Geechee art, Marlo Frazier and Gwen Alston will be really instrumental in helping. We also have our dog collection, and Zenobia Harper from Georgetown area. I mean, she's got a wealth of resources. She's an artist in her own rights as well. And Zenobia will be the new director of the Joyner Institute for Gullah Diaspora at Coastal Carolina University, and she's been very instrumental in helping with everything. And Marilyn serves as a resource. We just had a support from a whole lot of people, and Miss Joella McQueen, Mr. Edward McQueen, who helps us, and we're going to need a little bit more help financially, Edward, because you see the quality of the work that the young people did. They're going to be earning quite a bit for these presentations.
Absolutely.
And work.
I agree.
We want to give kudos also to Marva. It was an RV group that came to have their reunion in North Myrtle Beach. And they wanted to give back to the community. And they decided that they were going to give a donation to the Summer Literacy Project. And that group, a large group, took up 2 collections, and they brought an envelope with donations for these young people to be able to get a stipend for creating the projects and for completing the literacy project.
That's good. Fantastic.
Well, it truly was a village effort, and that's the beauty of it all. And so I'm getting ready to put up, Ms. McIver, a banner. If anyone is interested in being a part of the Summer Literacy Program, I'm going to go ahead and put a call to action out there on behalf of Ms. McIver and the group. always looking for individuals who have some skills and talents or just time to work with the young people over the summer as we pull together the various pieces of the literacy campaign. That you can be in touch with Ms. McIver, and here's her number and her email address. And I'm sure she could use a hand. She could use a donation. She could use some material. She could use some thoughts about, books and topics that the children may enjoy over the summer. So be in touch with her. And if you'd like to share in the things that we're doing, we certainly do welcome you to be a part of it. And I'm sure Ms. McIver, one thing I know about Ms. McIver, one thing's for sure, two things for certain, she will put you to work. So if you connect with her, please be serious about doing the work, because she's going to volunteer you on every occasion to do something, especially when it comes down to the youth. So we just want to thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you, Betty Goss, for tuning in. She says she will be in touch with you, and that's awesome. Thank you, Monty Richardson, Conway High School class of 88, my classmate. Thank you for watching tonight. Really do appreciate you as well. And thank you, Bonnie E., for tuning in. And those of you who did not comment, we know that you're watching, and we appreciate you spending time with us tonight and supporting these young people. Thank you to Desmond, Carlin, Savannah, and Elia for being a part of tonight's broadcast. And of course, our other special guests, Marilyn Hemingway and Dr. Kate Larson. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate you too, Gwen, smiling beautifully in the background.
So do we miss Destiny? We missed Destiny on here, don't we?
Well, he said, yeah, Destiny couldn't make it tonight. They made the decision yesterday or whatever it was that Desmond would be the person tonight to represent the two of them. Right. Desmond has a twin named Destiny, and they did a beautiful job on their presentation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So as you all prepare for school, we hope that you have an absolutely wonderful school year. And as Ms. McIver said, and we are actually encouraging you always, remember your history, embrace your history. Don't be ashamed of your history. Share your history as much as you can, and we got your back, and you know what that means. So, we appreciate all of you for spending the time and being focused on these projects this summer. And, we just hope that you have a wonderful and successful school year. And again, thank you all for joining us tonight. Brother Edward, do you have a final word?
Oh, it was too awesome. That's my final word. It was really too awesome for this. Wow, it's just looking at the youth there with what they came up with, and how imaginative. I'm going to use the word imaginative.
Yes,
they were in this in these projects under Ms. McIver. Mm-hmm. So congratulations to all of you, and looking forward to some of you working the summer jobs program next year. Of course, Desmond, you work every summer. Looking forward to Elia next summer and our summer job if you want a job. If you want a job. Miss Savannah, I don't know your age, and Mr. Jenkins. All right. We'll be there waiting for you.
All right. Well, thank you all, and tune in next week. Brother Edward, who do we have next week?
Next week, I think we have our Conway City Councilman, Ms. Helms. She's going to talk about the lack of affordable. Right, Ms. Beth Helms, talk about the lack of affordable housing. That is scheduled.
Okay. All right. So tune in next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. We'll have Beth Helms here. Affordable housing, a very critical topic, so you'll want to join in. Yes.
And she's going to try and bring the mayor with her, she said. Mayor Barbara
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and everyone take care. Have a good night. We really appreciate you.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.